Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about surviving busyness in marriage and family.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life. They cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining us today as we do another podcast episode on the Stronger Marriage Podcast. We're honored that you have joined us, and we've got a lot of new listeners, and we're glad to have them as well.
Absolutely. Yep. Hope y'all are enjoying some fall weather, getting ready for the holiday season. We are, I'm trying to put Trey off putting up the Christmas tree as long. He would have put it up a month ago. Y'all, if I'd have let him, we would have a Halloween Christmas.
There you go. Well, we have a Thanksgiving show. I believe in Thanksgiving. Yes. Christmas is, you start celebrating November the 1st, and then you have Thanksgiving, and then you keep celebrating afterwards. That's just kind of how I like to do it. I enjoy Christmas. Do what brings you joy, and that brings me joy and happiness. And
that is right.
It's not a bad deal, but I've got some lights up on my house, but no Christmas tree
The lights are up. The tree is probably going up next week. So
yeah, and if we weren't quite so busy this weekend, I think I've got you wavering enough. I could have talked you into it.
Probably.
But we're headed to Houston, Texas, and Pasadena. Got a workshop this weekend, and if you're listening and headed that way, we're excited to see you. We've got a big crowd coming, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Saturday morning, we'll start at 9 sharp. If you can be there about 8:45, grab your workbook. You get a nice workbook that is provided, and come in, find you a chair, sit down. There's probably going to be some coffee and stuff there for you to enjoy as well. We'll start at 9 o'clock, and it's going to be a fun day.
Fun, relaxed day, yes.
If you've never been to one of our workshops, we don't ask you to do anything crazy. You just sit there and listen, take notes. You'll do a lot of laughing. And then in break times, we have little homework things for you and your spouse to do.
Give you time to talk some things over with your spouse, and it's good stuff.
It is good stuff. So we've put a new schedule out. And so if you get a chance, check out that new schedule. We've added a date in Homestead, Florida. We've moved a date, Abilene, back a week. And so keep up to date. TreyandLee.com is where you can find all the information, how to register. Everything is there. So let's talk about busyness.
Busyness.
My goodness.
This is the time of year for busyness, right? I mean, you've got We've got fall sports. You've got all the holiday activities. It's
Is there
crazy.
not a time for busyness, or are we just always busy and we just get busier?
I think that's true.
You know, we live in a time that I think that we kind of glorify burnout and we kind of glorify busyness. You know, I got a lot done today. I was busy. And I don't know that should be so. Mm-hmm. We kind of live in a time to where if we have a day where we don't do much, we kind of feel guilty. And we probably shouldn't do that. Now, if you do that 7 days a week, you probably should feel guilty about that.
Right.
But even God was a God of rest and rested on the 7th day. And I think the value of rest and the value of not being overly busy is extremely important. And we have families out there today and people struggling because they have packed their calendar too full and they have become slaves to their calendar.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we just, we have during the work week, we've got early mornings, we've got, work all day, school all day, activities in the evenings, almost every evening for a lot of families. And then, you think, well, we'll relax on the weekends. But then the weekends are full of getting everything done that you couldn't do during the week. Like maybe you have to catch up on grocery shopping and all the laundry. And then there's still probably kids' sports activities on the weekends. Friday nights, Saturdays, even Sundays, sometimes we're seeing that, there's sports activities and things on Sundays. So, it's essential to have some rest. It's essential to have some family time. And so
it's hard to do marriage and it's hard to do family
It is.
if you're going 100
if
miles
you're
an
going
hour,
100 miles an hour,
dropping in bed exhausted every night.
and there are some, some not so great results of busyness. You find yourself not getting enough sleep. You've got so many demands from work and school and activities and expectations that press in, and that causes stress, lots of stress. And it doesn't just affect the adults, it affects children. Stress is a very real thing for kids today.
Mm-hmm. And stress is hard on your marriage. It makes you snap and bite, and it makes you aggravated and short-tempered, and what some of the ways that stress shows up in your marriage and family are
how to recognize. Let's talk about some ways to recognize stress.
If I've
sometimes
got
we
stress
don't
in my family.
Sometimes we don't even realize that we are stressed, which sounds silly because we're so used to being busy, and that's just become a way of life that we don't even realize that we're hanging on by a thread sometimes. So you can recognize stress in your kids if they start complaining about going to their activities,
their own activities that they wanted to do at one time, and they're like, "Oh, do I have to go?
I have to go. I don't want to go." They're stressed. They just want a break. Sometimes kids may start chewing their nails. They may have a hard time going to sleep and sleeping through the night. They may complain of headaches and stomach aches and not wanting to go to school every single morning. Do you ever fight that battle? We've done it with every single one of our boys at one time or another.
We've even had one that was so stressed over stuff that he pretty much every morning, if he was a married woman, you'd have thought he's pregnant, because every morning he was nauseous. He felt sick every morning when he got up, and it was stress.
His senior year of high school, we went to a doctor and we did some different tests. We were thinking something is wrong with this kid, and we finally realized after all the test results, and nothing was showing up in any kind of test results. And he actually talked to a friend that said, I went through the same thing. He's about 10 years older and done with school, but he said, I went through the same thing in high school, and it was anxiety, it was stress. And so, that's what we realized was going on with him. And that was, we dealt with it up until the time that his senior year was 2020, when COVID and all the craziness hit, and when everything just kind of shut down, and he didn't have to go to school anymore, and all of the crazy busyness came to a halt. He was better.
Yeah, life got better without all that stress.
He was a different kid.
Yeah.
So, recognize those signs. Trey mentioned earlier that, that tension spills over into the day, and you start having little arguments, and, kids are fussing and fighting, and husbands and wives are arguing over little silly things. And
if you can't, if every night you're going to bed going, finally, I'm in bed, and this is my happy zone, and every morning you're dreading getting up, that's probably a sign something's got to change. You have got to slow your pace of life. You have got to figure out, what can I do to do this? Because it's not realistic to stay in bed all day. You can't do that. But if you feel that way, obviously something is not right. How do we survive? And we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive as a family.
We want to thrive. That is the goal.
2020, you mentioned that just a second ago. One of the blessings of 2020 and quarantine was it made families slow down. And that was a blessing. It made families have to, all of a sudden, sports was done, school was done, activities were done, and families started playing board games. They went on bike rides. They went to the park. They went camping. And what we wanted and what we wished for families was that they would see you don't have to be involved in everything. When things pick up in life, just go back to doing some things. You don't have to do all things, because families got close. It was a great opportunities for families just to really be blessed.
They did. They absolutely did. So let's look at let's look at about, I don't know, what do we have here? 6 ways?
Yeah, five or six ways.
ways that we can not just survive, but that we can thrive during busyness.
Kind of either slowing some pace or doing some other things. So
Yeah.
number one is?
Yeah, just exactly what you've been talking about. Just say no. Just say no. Now, we realize this is easier said than done, but we really can say no to, a birthday party invitation, or maybe you've already got something on your schedule, a dinner party or something, and it's the day before, and you're just thinking, I just can't do it. Maybe it's a basketball practice that you just need to skip out on every once in a while. Are people going to be disappointed? Yeah, probably. But, sometimes a no is required in order to be our best selves.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes we've got to do better at saying no to things. And maybe just saying no to some things. You don't have to say no to everything, but say no to some things. And you shouldn't feel guilty about that.
That's right.
Maybe your child is wanting to be involved in 5 activities and say no to 4 of them.
Yeah,
or
you may
say no to 3
You
of
may
them.
need to say, okay, you get to pick the 2 that you really, really want to do. And they may throw a fit about it at first, but if they're involved in 5 activities, they're probably going to get to that point at some time or another where they're going, oh, do I have to go to that practice, or do I have to go to that this time? Or, they may think they want to do all of those things, but it's easy to burn out. It's easy to get stressed, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. So if you can just kind of look ahead and say, we need to pace ourselves, and we need to maybe not just jump in and say yes to all of these good things. They're all good things.
Yeah.
But yeah, just say no every once in a while.
Yeah, that is really good. I had a friend that couldn't say no. She struggled with that. She really did. And I made her a button for her shirt. Had one made that just said the word no on it. And people would call sometimes. I worked with her in an office, and I would hear her in there, and I would point at her button, and I would go, you tell them no. You don't have to do everything everyone asks you.
Yeah. And that's harder for some people than others. There are people that just really are people pleasers, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great trait to have, because usually they're servants at heart, and they're go-getters, but those people can burn out too.
One of the things that we do on this, I'll throw this out there, is I have learned, I'm one of those people that have a hard time saying no.
Yes.
I'm one of those people that want to make everybody happy. But I have learned at times to, when somebody asks and I'm like on the spot and I don't really want to say no, I have learned, get this, here's a secret. I'm going to have to talk with my wife and kind of check our schedule, and I will get back with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives me a moment to at least back away and do some thinking on it. Can I work this in, or can I not? And if my wife uses me for an excuse, if I need to talk to my husband and he's busy that night, I'm okay with that. Sometimes we just have to, say, look for a way. If you need a way to say no, just, hey, let me talk to my spouse before I make a commitment and kind of see what's going on. Oh, our schedule's too busy.
And that's a healthy thing to do in marriage anyway. We really should be doing that with everything, before you just jump in and say yes to a bunch of things.
Even if it's only for you,
right?
It's still going to affect your family and your spouse.
It's going to take you away from your family and spouse.
Maybe it's another night where somebody's asking me to do something, and it's not going to require anything of my family, but I can still say, I have got to talk about this with my spouse, because it's me being away another night is going to cause more issues.
That's right.
So
yeah, it might be the only night that you have, that you could spend time as a family or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, always talk things over with your spouse or with your family, and make sure that it's a good decision for the whole family, even if it really doesn't include the whole family. It does in a roundabout way. So
let's do number 2. Keep things simple. Another way that you can not just survive but thrive. Keep things simple. So what does keeping things simple mean?
Yeah, don't place unnecessary demands on yourself or your family. For example, here's a few. If you're having people over, sometimes it's okay to just use paper plates. I tend to want to set a really pretty table and use all my best dishes, and everything has to look nice and perfect. But there are times when it's okay to just say, you know what, the food is on the counter. We're going to eat buffet style, and here's a paper plate, and that relieves some stress. That relieves some work.
My friend Clark Griswold did this one time. In a movie, he put way too much demands on himself for
Yes.
having the perfect
Oh my goodness,
Christmas
yes.
when everybody was coming in, and it was shambles.
Uh-huh.
Christmas Vacation reference there, and so it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't put too much stress on yourself, and
That's right.
maybe you put one tree up instead of 4 trees, or maybe you don't decorate the whole house this year.
Yeah, Christmas, putting up Christmas decorations can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. And, like Trey said, maybe you just put up the tree and call it good. We have boxes, pretty bad, because I live with Mr. Christmas and I love to decorate. And so we have boxes and boxes of Christmas decor. And we do usually put up multiple trees in and around our house. And one Christmas was that about 10 years ago?
Probably.
Our oldest son was in the Army, and I don't believe it was his first Christmas away, but his second Christmas away from us, he was actually deployed. And it was just, man, that was tough. That was the first time that he, didn't get to come home that we weren't all together for Christmas. And then also knowing what he was doing during Christmas, that was just a tough, tough year. And we just could not even face getting out all the Christmas decorations. We didn't feel holly jolly, it wasn't the merriest of Christmases for us. And that year we put up our tree because we had other kiddos, and we wanted to still make Christmas a special time, but we put up our tree, we hung the stockings, and we didn't put Christmas lights up on the house that year. We tied yellow ribbons around all of our trees, and I'm kind of getting
Yeah, I'm sitting here watching
I'm
you
getting
get
a little
emotional.
emotional.
It's all right.
so
This is good for you to talk about this.
it is. But sometimes, your family will enjoy the holiday more if you're just available and not stressed. So don't place unnecessary demands on yourself.
That is a good point. So keep it simple, especially right now around Thanksgiving and Christmas that we're going to do. Number 3, let's look at depend on your community. Depending on your community, meaning, for example, be good at maybe asking somebody to help, or maybe passing something off on someone else. Being good at giving somebody else responsibility. I can't think of the word that I'm currently...
Delegate.
Delegating. That's what I was hoping you knew what that word was.
Delegate.
Be pretty good
It's
at
okay
delegating.
to delegate.
Yeah.
I mean, you've all heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise your children. Depend on your village for support. We're meant to be in relationships with people. So depend on that. Maybe you don't have to drive your kid to every single practice. If there are about 3 other kiddos that are doing the same activity, figure out a carpool system, where only one of you does it one day and then somebody does it the next day. And that just frees up some time for you. We had a lunch co-op with our boys when they were in high school. They got to come home. Now they've closed campus now, and they have to eat on campus. But back then, the boys came home for lunch every day, and they wanted to bring friends. And, it's like we finally figured out, okay, the 4 or 5 of you, however many days we did that, you come to our house on Mondays. Let's arrange for y'all to go to somebody's house on Tuesdays. And then, anyway, that worked great. I was only feeding them one day a week.
Yeah.
And they got fed every single day a really good meal by a mom or a grandma of, somebody in their little group. And that was fantastic. So, and maybe you need to look for a tutor to help with some homework. I mean, that can be an overwhelming thing for families these days. I know, goodness, our kids got to a certain point where they bring home math homework that just looked like something I'd never seen before. I always thought I was a pretty good math student, but wow, they do things different these days than they did when I was in school. And so, if that's a stress for you, find somebody that can help them with their homework that knows what's going on. Depend on your community to help out.
Yeah, that is good. Number 4, seek joy, meaning focus on some joys in your life. It is a frame of mind that really does impact your physical and mental state. If you are constantly always looking at the negatives, if you are constantly always thinking about everything that's going to be wrong, if you're constantly always focusing on your schedule.
That's true.
Seek some joy.
Seek joy. I know several people that keep a gratitude journal. They literally, first thing they do when they wake up in the morning is they think of, 3 things that they're grateful for, and they write it down in their journal. And they just start their day thinking about how grateful they are and how thankful they are for what they have. And, that's a great thing to do. And maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you're not an early morning, kind of person. But talk about things you're grateful for with your family, maybe over dinner time. Maybe before everybody goes to bed that night. You're getting your kids tucked into bed, and talk about some things you're grateful for as you go to bed. But focus on the joy. Seek some joy in your world. And yeah.
Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice.
Yep.
Philippians chapter 4. Number 5, take care of yourself.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah, don't neglect your own physical, mental, and emotional state because you're too busy.
Yeah. When life is busy, we tend to let go of things that really do matter. Our sleep, exercise gets pushed to the back burner. Nutrition, we're grabbing junk food on the way out the door. Our time that we need to just recharge our batteries, we feel like we can't spare any time in our day to just sit and read a book or take a hot soaky bath or whatever it is. But man, those things they truly are essential to our, physical and mental health, as we talked about earlier. And you said, you brought this up when we were talking about, getting ready for this episode about what Satan does to marriages and families.
Yeah, I think Satan really does a number on being content with busyness. Meaning, if Satan can't get you to sin, if he can't get you to drive a wedge between you and your spouse or your kids, I honestly think he's pretty content with just making you so busy that you don't have time to be a married couple or a family. He just is going to fill your plate. He wants you to take on more stuff where you don't have time to serve God. You don't have time to be a family. You don't have time to sit down and have a kid in your lap and read a book. If Satan can't make us sin, he's content with keeping us busy, and that's not a healthy thing. We have got to do better at that. I keep throwing things out, but I'm reminded of be still and know that I am God. There's some stillness involved in that God says in the book of Psalms through David. There's something to calmness and stillness. And if your day is so loud and your day is so busy and your day is so hectic that you're never still, then it's really hard to see God and hear God. We've just become a people who don't slow down enough. There was an old phrase back when I was a kid that they used to say. I think my coach used to yell it to me when I was in pee-wee football, whatever it was, and say, "Don't just stand there, do something." Sometimes I think God looks at us and says just the opposite. Don't just do something, stand there for a while.
Yeah.
Be still, be quiet. That's just really healthy. We've got to do a better job taking care of ourselves.
We really
and
do.
Understanding that there is nothing wrong to saying no to some things.
Yeah, and we've mentioned this statistic before, but we ran across a statistic that says couples, due to busyness, jobs, kids, responsibilities, only spend 4 minutes in quality conversation a day.
Face-to-face talk.
Face-to-face talking 4 minutes a day. And wow, that we just don't think that's good. That's enough. That's not enough time to have a good solid.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
4 minutes a day is not even close. And this is, you may text all day long, and that's awesome. Keep that going. But you've got to have some face-to-face communication.
Yeah. And we know some couples that, they seem to have a really great marriage. They work really, strange schedules, and they don't get this time. But hopefully they're getting, like maybe Sundays is their day. Maybe they can spend the whole day together on Sundays. If they can't get, a lot of time during the week, then you got to figure out something where you're having some face-to-face, lots of good time together.
I agree.
And another thing that we tend to push to the back burner when it comes to marriage and busyness is sex.
Yeah.
It really is.
Busyness is an enemy to
It is.
good, healthy, married sex.
It is. We're a fan of the book Sheet Music by Dr. Kevin Lehman, and he has the title of one of the chapters in that book is The Greatest Enemy of Sex, and he talks about busyness and weariness. We're too busy and we're too tired, and so we just push it to the back burner. And we've done several episodes on the importance of physical intimacy and the bonding that it does between a couple, and that shouldn't be something that suffers because you can't say no to a few activities.
It's true. If you're dropping in bed every night, too exhausted to even give thought to having some intimacy with your spouse, something's off.
Yeah.
If you feel like it's just another thing, oh no, I got to check off another thing on my list. At the end of the day, we've not had sex, we've not been intimate in a week, whatever it is, then something's off. Something's gotta be adjusted.
Yeah. Marriage and family matters more than homework, more than a practice, more than a meeting. We can be more productive with the time we actually have available to us if we first take the time we need to tend to what matters.
Yeah.
So that was a big statement there. But, we're of no use to anyone if we're flat on our face gasping for air.
Yeah.
So make time to read your Bible. Make time for prayer. Have some time for intimacy and conversation with your spouse. Have fun family nights at home. It is in nurturing your relationship with God and your spouse and your kids that you will find your rest.
Yeah. Can I throw out one more thing real quick?
Yes.
Because I think it does go back to fit a little bit with don't say no or learn to say no on some stuff. Maybe you've got multiple kids that are involved in multiple activities. It does not make you a bad parent to say, hey, you've got 14 soccer games this season, but I'm not going to be able to come to all of them. You don't have, there may be a time where you go, the only time for me and my husband or me and my wife is maybe a Saturday morning date, and your kid goes play soccer. You don't have to go watch every practice. You don't have to go to every game. I'm not saying be a bad parent. I'm not saying don't go to every game. But, if you are getting no time for your marriage because you're going full speed ahead, it's okay to say no to one of 14 or two of 14 games or something along those lines. You're not a bad parent because you don't make all of them.
Yeah, that's true. And your kids really will understand. We went to the vast majority of our kids' activities, but we had a kiddo that ran track, and he was in like a 30-second event. And, it was like, and we had to drive so far from where we live. We had to drive, 2 and 3 hours to track meets. And he told us, he said, do not come to this track meet.
For a
it is
15-minute run,
silly for
15-second,
y'all to be in the car for 5 hours to watch me run for 30 seconds. Yeah. Do not come. And he recognized that. So we applauded his wisdom for that. But he knew, we were going to be at everything and that we could possibly be at. But he really wanted us to know that he was okay with us not coming to that track meet.
We've had a few conversations with couples that have said, hey, we would love to come to a marriage workshop. Our marriage really, really needs it. But our child has a game that morning. And we've asked, is this his only game? You need to go. If this is, no, he's had 12, and we're like, miss a game. You're going to bless your child by going to this workshop. They will be blessed in the long run because you've got a good marriage. So keep your priorities straight. Let's talk about the last one.
Yes. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat it.
What does that mean?
Okay, so there's a book that you may be familiar with by Richard Carlson, and this is actually the title of it. Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff.
He's right.
He is right. And the book is just all about how to keep the little things in life from driving you crazy. So how do you know what's big stuff and small stuff? Because everything seems like big stuff at the time. The time you're going through it, it seems big. But there's a question you can ask yourself, and that is, will this matter a year from now? And honestly, the answer to that question on most everything is no. You know, will this practice matter a year from now? Will the fact that my child even played, this sport matter a year from now? If they're seniors in high school and you love watching your kids play sports, but our son decided not to his senior year because he was looking ahead to college, and he was like, it doesn't matter. Sports don't matter. I want to start taking more of the dual credit classes and, start getting some of those under my belt before I start college. And
I think it was harder on us.
It was harder on us. He was our last one, and it was like, oh no. But he just was a wise kid, and he realized this stuff really, it's not going to matter a year from now, and it's certainly not going to matter 20 years from now, whether or not.
And what we didn't do was say, we didn't try to discourage you. We said, hey, you're old enough to make this decision, and we're not going to discourage you.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
it's okay if the ball gets dropped from time to time
That's
on
right.
activities.
You're gonna forget. Sometimes we just are busy and we forget things. Man, I've forgotten meetings. We've forgotten appointments, and that happens when you get overwhelmed and busy. And don't be so hard on yourself when those things happen. If you forget your kid's school party or whatever, maybe you signed up to bring cookies to it and you totally forgot. Don't sweat the small stuff, because it really is all small stuff.
Work hard to look at your schedule. Maybe talk with your spouse and say, what are some things that we could clear off of our schedule? What are some things we could say no to? And try hard to not let Satan make you so busy that you don't have time to be a good husband or good wife or good mama because you're just so busy.
Yeah. The new year's coming up, so it's a good time to reevaluate. You may be already locked into some events and things at school, but before spring sports start, maybe just ask yourself, which ones of these are that we truly want to be involved in, and don't overload yourself, because your marriage and your family needs you.
They do.
Yeah.
And your time and presence with them is more valuable than giving them more stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
See you next week.